Hello. So today's topic is trustless implementation of aggregation layer of Unicity network. So Unicity is layered architecture to achieve necessary level of capacity and performance. So let's draw it. First, at the top, we have a consensus layer, which contains a proof of work, blockchain and a finality gadget below it, but we are looking at them as a one big picture. Below, we have a aggregation layer. It accepts Unicity proof requests from users, agents, everything. So below, we just draw them as execution layer. So this one includes end users, agents, whatever. We are not looking at them, in fact. And the proof of work blockchain is one which provides decentralization for us. It's run by independent people. It provides Nakamoto level decentralization and trustlessness for everything. So we want the trustlessness to propagate down at the next layers below. And at the same time, we want to achieve like more capacity at the layers below, without overloading the decentralization and consensus layer. And today's topic is how we can achieve it. And the aggregation layer accepts requests in batches. Entire aggregation layer works in batches. Batching is a awesome way to achieve high capacity. And one batch contains requests to set a new value in this system. We model it as a key value store, for example, and we want the keys and values to be stored forever, so that if a key is set, we know that the transaction output is spent and it cannot be spent anymore beyond just a single spending. And this is where the word unicity came from. This infrastructure guarantees unicity of every spending transaction of assets, tokens, whatever. So it accepts batches, and during a one batch, it sends a certification request to the consensus layer. And when this consensus layer validates if everything is correct, certifies it, and sends downward a certificate, which certifies one round of this aggregation tree's operation. And when we are looking at the consensus layer from aggregation tree side, we see it as one trusted authority. So it provides us trust. It's a trusted party, but it's not implemented, of course, as a trusted machine. It's implemented as a decentralized machine. So what goes into request? It's we have some kind of like state summary which captures entire state of this dictionary. And during one round, this summary value is updating, and we certify this summary value. Now let's denote it as R. In order to make it more sense, let's look at the implementation as well. So we are implementing it as a Merkle tree. Merkle tree is like a very common data structure used in blockchains, everything, and it works as an accumulator. It contains lots of leaves, and we build a hash tree on top of those leaves in a tree, and at the root we have a single value which captures entire state of this Merkle tree. So we want to have some extra functionality from this Merkle tree. We want it to behave like a key value store. So in order to record the key of every leaf, we in fact are kind of clever, and we store its location as a shape, how we can reach to this leaf when we start traversal of a tree from root towards leaves. Not kind of upside down, but root is up, leaves are down, but whatever. And even more, we want to generate inclusion proofs for execution layer below it. And we also want to generate non-inclusion proofs. Non-inclusion proof tells that the state is not spent yet. It's kind of useful in some protocols. And the best data structure to generate inclusion proofs, non-inclusion proofs, and to capture the key or location of a leaf is so-called sparse Merkle tree. So sparse means that the tree is kind of huge. Its depth is typically like 256 levels or so. And because like recomputing this kind of tree is not possible, only the parts which contain like actual leaves are recalculated when we perform changes in the tree. And of course, this calculation happens only once per round, and there are like lots of interesting caching strategies involved. So just to have an example, let's draw a little tree here. To simplify, let's have just 8 leaves. And so this is the root, and we see that there is only 4 layers. In reality, of course, there is much more. So in sparse Merkle trees, in fact, the empty leaves do not exist in real world. They exist as virtual leaves. And the leaves are marked with some kind of like empty leaf placeholder. And let's mark it as empty set or something like this. And it's easy to implement this tree with some special hashing rules. So if you have a special rule that hash of 2 empty values is also empty value, then recalculation of this entire tree gets kind of easy. Hashing 2 empties results with empty value, again empty value, and the root is empty value. So we automatically get the empty value as an output. But if we add a key and a value here key is 1, 1, 0 in binary. Let's say it's a value of 32. And here is again an empty value. Then we have to calculate only 2 hashing operations basically, because everything else is again hashes as a 0. We hash together 32 and 0. Get here is a hash, here is a hash, here is another hash. So this is one way how it's possible to implement a sparse Merkle tree. Most of the leaves are empty, only some are set, and the calculation is kind of like compact. We only have to calculate some paths, but we can optimize it. So instead of having this kind of formula, we basically compress this chain of hashing a value with zeros. And we have like a different rule that's saying that hash of x with empty equals x, vice versa, empty x equals again x, and hashing of x and y is traditional hash of both. And if we have this kind of like hash computation rule, it makes tree recalculation even simpler. So instead of having a hash here, we just have a 32 here, 32 here, and 32 is a final root value as well. So 0 hashing operations if you have only 1 leaf. But there is a little problem, of course. We lose the location through this tree. So instead we add the location as an extra attribute to this leaf if we have this kind of like calculation rules. Okay, and the aggregation trees implemented like this kind of sparse Merkle tree entirely. When a new batch of transactions come in, we just set the leaves and compute the root, let the root to be certified by the consensus layer, and consensus layer returns us a certificate, which is returned together with an inclusion proof or non-inclusion proof. And briefly, what's inclusion proof? Inclusion proof is hash chain with hash value here, with hash value, and this one here. And if something is computable, we in fact compute the intermediary values. So in order to compute this value, we need a neighbor here. To calculate this one, we need a neighbor, and so on. So the hash chain is in fact is like a set of neighbors. And non-inclusion proof is just a hash chain which is terminated by the marker of empty value. So because here is an empty value, the non-inclusion proof for any of those leaves here is just a little Swiss piece of hash value and nothing more. And because this entire state of this tree is certified and fixed by a certificate on top of this root value R here, it's possible to generate those inclusion proofs and non-inclusion proofs completely trustlessly. If we modify here something in a wrong way, inappropriate way, when it breaks the hash chain and the certificate on top of it wouldn't certify it anymore. Now, we also want this consensus layer to validate if this aggregation tree is built correctly. So if we need this tree to be append only, so we have to guarantee that no leaves are removed here. And also we would like to guarantee that the aggregation tree does not run two copies of itself. So if you have a like fake tree here next to it, and it presents alternatively with alternative root hashes, and hash from here, hash from here, hash from here, it means that the client requests can be certified twice, which equals to double spending. And I'll show briefly how to avoid it. Now, instead of presenting only one root hash value, we present state transfers to consensus layer. So its state transfer is a transfer from one root to a new one. Let's mark it R prime. And the consensus layer keeps the previous R in its memory. And there is a rule that the consensus layer can certify only one unique state transfer. So if there are two conflicting transfer and R from R to R double prime, then this would be illegal if R prime and R second are different. They must be the same. This means that all the state transfers have to be unique, and this guarantees that there cannot be two independent copies of this A here. So we know that within a certification request we need two hashes, R and R prime. And we also need to guarantee that there are no illegal modifications in this tree. So what happens if somebody modifies illegally a key here? Because the key is basically like key addressed, it means that the modification of a key is valid only if we also relocate the leaf. But relocation of a leaf is exactly the same as deleting old one and setting a new leaf. And another illegal operation is just removing the leaf. So we see that the only thing we need to guarantee for correct operations is that no leaves are removed at all. And we present a cryptographic proof next to the state transfer to consensus layer. Let's denote it as a pi. And the consensus layer validates the proof that no leaves were removed, certifies it, and returns it back. So let's say that result is, or certificate is round number, or prime, and signature. Signature is generated collectively by consensus layers node, let's say. So let's add more data to this picture to make sense. We have a batch of requests. Let's call them B1, B2, and so on. Those are the keys and value pairs. And the result, what's returned to users, is a hash chain to the leaf and a certificate here. This is a certificate. And based on this kind of certificate, it's possible to trustlessly show that the leaf is included. And if consensus layer validates the proofs of non-deletion, it's also possible to say that this system here works without trust. We don't have to trust the aggregation layer in terms of not modifying data, not doing double spending, this kind of like nasty things. But of course, there are like other risks. These aggregation layer machines can just lose their state, which would be catastrophic for us. So still, it's necessary to run every shard of aggregation layer as a cluster of machines. But the clusters can be relatively small compared to blockchain standards, when there is an assumption that honest majority must be present for basic security. So instead of having like hundreds or machines, it's just okay to have, let's say, 5 or 9 or something like these machines here. And to not lose data at this point, we can use something like Raft, for example, which is like kind of efficient for guaranteeing that data is not lost. So, and now let's talk about how this kind of proof is generated. We have a sparse Merkle tree in a state before we add a batch of leaves. Now we have only one value, 32 here, and we will add some more. Let's say 5, 8, and 16. And in order to calculate the tree again, we traverse it. This one will be a hash value. This is a hash value. We have all the necessary data to calculate them. Here, the sibling to calculate this one is in fact the marker of an empty value, so we do not need anything else. And let's remember this point here. So here, 16 is hashed together with empty one, which is defined thing. It's again, we have 16 here. We don't need any extra information. But at this point, we need some extra information because the value depends on existing leaf for 32. So this is a 32. And here happens hashing 16 with 32, meaning that this is a sibling which we need to store together with its location so that it's possible to compute the hash chains after adding the batch. So basically what happens is that we calculate this value with a blank, remember it, calculate this value with 16 and blank, calculate this value with 32 and blank, hash them together, 16 and 32, and hash those neighbors together. And we see that only value missing for this calculation is 32. And what goes into the proof right now on this example is this sibling 32 and its location in this tree. This is how the proof is generated and how the tree is recalculated after every batch. And importantly, if it's like a large tree with like hundreds of layers, when the recalculation is only some very few chains. Even if it's like thousands of new leaves, it's still very, very small number compared to like entire space of the trees. There are like 2 in a power of 256 leaves in reality in this kind of tree. Okay, and there are like just few chains to recalculate, so it's feasible and computable. Now, let's see how the proof can be verified. The proof here. In order to verify its existence first, we show that the leaves were empty before we added the new batch. The new batch is here. And in order to do so, we know that which values are empty because of we know what's inside the batch. So we have this is also input information. So we know which values we have to prove which are empty, those ones, and given the sibling value, we recalculate the root. We hash empty ones, we hash 32 with empty, and we reach the root before the batch addition, which is a previous hash and which is equal to 32. Now we run the second pass, and at this time we include the leaves 5, 8, 16 at its correct locations, and we redo the calculation. Nothing else has changed in the tree, by the way, and we hash them together, and at this point we get value 32 from the proof pi, hash them together, and reach the new root value after adding the batch. And it's important that during this recalculation, the siblings didn't change, never. Here the siblings were empty, they didn't change to value, or the value didn't change to empty back. This sibling was before 32, and after the batch it was 32, which means that nothing else changed. Only the leaves we were adding here did change. And if a second pass is also correctly verified, then tada, we have shown that no other leaves were removed or modified during this one round of operation. So in reality, of course, the number of sibling hashes we need to recalculate those hash chains, or we can call it hash forest, can be larger. It depends on the size of a batch and how populated the tree is before addition, but still it's kind of easily computable. It can be, in case of if a batch is like tens of thousands of new leaves, then the size of a proof is like in megabytes, and its recalculation is tens of milliseconds, which is rather easy to validate. But yeah, the limiting factor is the size of a proof. So this is how the just purely hash-based proof looks like. But as I said, that if we have like tens of thousands of new leaves, then the size of proof pi gets large. It's in order of megabytes already. And if you have many shards here, many trees, then the amount of information which must be processed by the consensus layer can get large. So in order to make it manageable, we use zero knowledge for data compression. And let's talk about zero knowledge. I'll clean up and then we continue. So meanwhile, I've drawn on a whiteboard how it's a simplest representation of what is a zero knowledge. It's not accurate, but good enough for explanation right now. So it's three functions. One is a setup function, which takes as an input a program or statement in like write language and some kind of like security parameters, and returns a proving key and verification key. Second algorithm is prover or proving algorithm, which takes proving key, public inputs and private inputs, usually called witness. And the final third algorithm is verification algorithm, which takes verification key, public inputs, and the proof generated by the previous step. But importantly, the secret input is not present here. So what does the program do? The program does some kind of verification. It can verify that a computation based on input of public and secret part is valid. And if a program fails, then it must be not possible to generate a valid proof. This is called the soundness property of zero knowledge scheme. In our case, the program validates the non-deletion proof generated by the aggregation tree. And it's mapped so that the public input is a previous hash before the round and the root hash after completing the round, so that the verifier can identify which round this proof applies for. And the secret input is the actual proof. The proof is like a bunch of sibling values, and the proof can be pretty large. But importantly, while verifying with everything, the secret input can be thrown away. We don't care about its content. So this is how we achieve data reduction or succinctness of the entire scheme. So in order to verify, basically, we have a proof. Verification key is some kind of identifier of a program, like for example hash of it, and public input is 2 hashes. This is a zero knowledge proof, not the hash-based proof, of course. And its size depends on the actual scheme which we were using here. And this zero knowledge based proof compression helps us to run many more shards in parallel below the consensus layer, because the work done by consensus layer is reduced. Consensus layer only has to execute this verification algorithm, but the aggregation clusters must run this proving algorithm, which is rather expensive. But it achieves data compression, and this verification is also almost a constant time operation. It doesn't depend much on the input in case of Stark-based zero knowledge schemes. And we can illustrate it with some graph. So here we have a size of a batch which goes into aggregation tree instance. Let's say that it's the size of a batch, and this is the size of actual proof or verification effort. It doesn't matter much. So if you have a just hash-based proof, like in previous whiteboard picture displayed, we have a linear relationship here. But if you have a zero knowledge based compression of a proof, you have something like this. So we see that if you have like really small batches, the use of zero knowledge doesn't make sense, because the proof size includes this zero knowledge proof, which is considerable size, and we just lose the secret inputs. But from a certain batch size, the use of zero knowledge allows us to achieve better capacity by reducing the actual proof size and reducing the load for a consensus cluster. This concludes the talk. Thank you.